Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're deconstructing a reality that is completely exhausting, highly emotional, and honestly, incredibly common. We're talking about repetitive relationship conflict. We are going to break down the actual science behind why you keep spinning your wheels in your relationships, and more importantly, map out exactly how to escape that loop. Okay, let's dive into this. We have literally all been there, right? You start having the seemingly harmless disagreement about, whose turn it is to take out the trash, or maybe what you're spending on groceries. And somehow within like 5 minutes, it ends in tears or shouting or just that awful icy silence. It kind of feels like madness. It's a different day, a different topic, but it always ends in the exact same painful place. I want to fundamentally shift your perspective right here, right now. You are not fighting about what you think you're fighting about. It's not about the dishes. It's not about the schedule. The real fight, the one that's actually driving all of that exhausting conflict, is about something far more primal. And the truth is, until we uncover what that is, absolutely nothing is going to change. So to get there, we first need to dismantle a pretty massive myth. You do not have a communication problem. Honestly, things like breathing exercises, I statements, walking away to count to 10, scheduling check-ins, or making chore charts, these are just logistical band-aids. When couples rely on these tools to solve a repetitive fight, they're just treating a symptom, not the underlying wound. They fail because they're strictly addressing the surface when the real issue is buried deep, deep down inside us. Section 1, the invisible system. To really grasp this, we've got to plunge right into the primal depths of our human hardwiring. Human beings are biologically wired for attachment. Our nervous systems literally depend on our partners for a sense of safety in the world. So when that bond feels threatened, we don't just get slightly annoyed. We enter a state of sheer biological panic. This is known as an attachment protest. It's a full body alarm response, and it's frantically asking two desperate questions. Are you there for me? And am I enough for you? Now, what's really interesting about this is how we react to that panic. We generally fall into one of two camps. The relentless lover pursues, criticizes, demands, and turns up the volume because to them, silence feels exactly like abandonment. On the flip side, the reluctant lover withdraws, goes totally quiet, and stonewalls because all that intense conflict feels like direct evidence of their own shame or failure. They're using completely opposite survival strategies. And here's the kicker. They are fighting for the exact same need for safety. And wow, this quote just completely captures the cruel irony of it all. The person who pursues is trying to save the relationship. The person who withdraws is trying to protect it. Both partners are reacting out of love and desperation. They both want connection, for sure, but their actions end up being totally devastating to one another because the pain is just too loud for either of them to hear the other's true intent. This dynamic creates what emotionally focused therapy calls the waltz of pain. Let's map out this infinity loop together. So, first, a moment of disconnection triggers panic. Then, the relentless partner reaches out to bridge the gap, but it comes across sounding like criticism. The reluctant partner feels attacked, so they retreat. Seeing that retreat, the relentless partner panics even more and reaches way harder, which just causes the reluctant partner to retreat even further. They're basically acting like emotional boomerangs, constantly triggering each other in this inescapable loop of stimulus and hurt. Section 2, the level 8, level 2 rule. So, how on earth do we spot this in real time? Well, the key is understanding this specific difference. A content fight is about actual, tangible topics, logistics, schedules, the vacation budget, who picks up the kids. An attachment fight is about the bond itself, safety, priority, mattering. But the tricky part, the real trap here, is that an attachment fight almost always disguises itself as a mundane content fight, which brings us to the number 8. Here's your ultimate diagnostic tool. If you are having a level 8 emotional reaction to a level 2 logistical problem, you are absolutely having an attachment fight. For example, say your partner doesn't reply to a text message for 6 hours. Okay, that's a level 2 logistical issue, but if it makes you feel like you don't even exist to them, that is a massive level 8 reaction. The attachment system has been activated. And honestly, that leads us right to a foundational rule of relationship psychology. You cannot solve a logistical problem with a disconnected nervous system. When your attachment bond is threatened, your limbic system, which is the emotional center of your brain, completely hijacks your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logic. The hardware you need for compromise literally goes offline. You just cannot negotiate logistics when your nervous system is actively scanning for a mortal threat. All right, section 3, the versus illusion. When you're caught up in that waltz of pain, both partners usually lock into this really rigid belief. They think, I am right and you are wrong. I am reasonable and you are impossible. And the wild thing is, both partners feel completely 100% morally justified in their positions. They both have evidence, but the real tragedy is that both of them are completely wrong about how they're framing the problem. So the crucial point is right here. The fight was actually never you versus your partner, never. The fight was always both of you versus the invisible system you co-created. This requires a huge paradigm shift. You have to move from I consciousness to we consciousness. That cycle, that reach and retreat loop we talked about, that is the true enemy in the room, not the person you love. Which brings us to section 4, breaking the cycle. Okay, now that we've diagnosed this invisible system, let's talk about the actual cure. When you're stuck in the cycle, it literally feels like you're drowning in separate pools. You're entirely consumed by your own struggle to survive, and you're unable to see that your partner's drowning right there too. The breakthrough happens when you merge those isolated suffering bubbles into one shared relationship suffering bubble. You have to realize you're in the same water, reaching for the same shore, and the only way out is together. To actually do this, emotionally focused therapy uses this brilliant framework called empathy cubed. Let's break down these 3 steps. First, compassion for yourself and your own nervous system's history, your own attachment wounds. Second, compassion for your partner. You have to realize their harsh tone or their cold silence is just a survival response, not an unprovoked attack. And third, compassion for the system, recognizing that this tragic co-created dance is way bigger than both of you. This process is a total game changer. It transforms arguments from destructive wars into real opportunities for repair. And if you take away nothing else from this explainer, remember this golden rule: connection first, problem solving later, period. You absolutely must safely share your vulnerable feelings to regulate each other's nervous systems before you ever attempt to negotiate the logistics of that content fight. Because once both nervous systems feel safe again, resolving the actual content becomes incredibly easy. And this brilliantly illustrates our final hurdle here. Knowing all about the mango is definitely not the same thing as tasting the mango. You could read a whole book about a mango, analyze its texture, its origin, but that is not the same thing as taking a bite. Intellectually understanding the concepts in this explainer just isn't enough. You cannot logic your way out of a physiological pattern. You actually have to physically experience this vulnerability with your partner in real time in your body to break the cycle. So let's do a quick rapid fire summary of what actually works in the real world. First, recognize the difference between attachment fights and content fights. Second, hit the pause button the second your emotions exceed a 6 out of 10. Turn toward the pain instead of defending your anger, and literally name the vulnerable feeling underneath it. Remember to see the cycle as the enemy. And finally, really consider seeking an EFT therapist who can actually guide you through tasting that mango, so to speak. I want to leave you with this final thought. The fact that you are arguing is not the problem. It's actually proof that you care. It's proof that your nervous system is activated by the mere possibility of losing this person. So the question is, Are you ready to stop wearing your defensive armor and finally listen to what your partner's nervous system is desperately trying to say? I think it's time to have the conversation you've been trying to have all along. If you want to work on this for real, try Figlet, my AI relationship coaching app. You can start for free, no credit card needed, at figlet.empathy.com.